Good morning, everybody. Welcome to today's 1Mby1M Strategy Roundtable. 1Mby1M, as you know, is the first and only global virtual accelerator in the world. Our mission is to help 1 million entrepreneurs reach $1 million and beyond in annual revenue. And in support of that mission, week after week after week, year after year after year, we've been doing these free mentoring roundtables. This is the 415th episode. We started doing these in the fall of 2008. So 10 years have passed, and much water has passed under every single bridge in the world, whether it's the Golden Gate or the Thames River bridges or the Charles River bridges in Prague, whatever. You have all done all kinds of ventures, and we have been here listening to you, working with you shoulder to shoulder for years and years and years. So the event is being recorded. You will have a roundtable recording available on our 1M1M Roundtables channel on YouTube. And every single recording of prior roundtables are available on this channel. So if you have time, if you're trying to learn, and you want to listen to more roundtables, by all means, use the YouTube channel. If you're live tweeting the show today, use hashtag 1M1M, and you can join us on Twitter at 1Mby1M and at Romana. Both channels are very active. We publish huge amounts of inspirational, educational, informational material through that for the IT and IT-enabled services industry only. We don't work outside of IT and IT-enabled services. And these are the call-in instructions. We're not quite ready for you to call in. I have a guest. I'm going to introduce you to our guest very shortly. But remember, this is a roundtable, not a broadcast. So we do want you to participate. We do want you to call in. Use the public chat to ask your questions. Make sure you set your public chat to send to all participants and not send me private messages. So keep this in mind. I will put the slide up later. You can make a note of the numbers in the meantime. Let me introduce you to Brock Pierece, Managing Partner of Unicorn Ventures, and a whole lot of other things that Brock does. We're going to learn about his activities, his investment thesis, and so on today. Welcome, Brock. Great to have you here.
No, thank you for having me.
Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about your various activities? I know you're an expert in Bitcoin, expert in crypto, expert in blockchain, and you invest outside of those segments as well. So give us an overview of what you are up to, and then we'll double-click down.
Well, yeah, I do lots of things, so I'll try and keep it brief. Well, I'm a fan of innovation. I'm a believer in change, and I like to facilitate. I like to support those change agents, those people that see opportunity to do things differently. I like to support those people that are saying, I see a way to do something better than it has been done, and I like to call it put fuel on that fire.
So let's start with Unicorn Ventures. Let's talk about Unicorn Ventures. What is the investment thesis of the fund? How big is the fund? Give us a little bit of information about the fund and your activities through it.
Well, I'm always amused to see what title is put here. So Unicorn Ventures is my family office with my wife, Crystal, who happens to be pregnant. So this is our personal investments. James Santos administers most of it along with the rest of my, call it, personal team. And so this is predominantly a vehicle investing in cryptocurrency-related projects or blockchain-related endeavors, though we're invested in a fair amount of real estate. I mean, again, it's a family office. As well as a handful of interesting technology projects, call it broader internet. I've been running and founding venture firms for about almost 10 years now. And so I've founded 4 or 5 funds directly, and I've been involved in the creation of a dozen others or so. And more recently, I helped launch EOS VC, which is the biggest limited partner in blockchain. We've allocated $1 billion into blockchain funds, so I've been the largest LP in our industry.
Okay. So I would like to actually focus our discussion primarily on your blockchain investments and, more importantly, your blockchain investment thesis. So let's start there and give us an idea about how you are looking at the blockchain world as an investor.
Well, at a macro, I'm a global macro sort of thinker and investor. The internet has impacted every business on the planet and all of our lives. The blockchain is going to probably have about 10 times the impact that the internet has. And to put it simply, the internet as we think of it, the internet of information, has changed the way that data moves. The problem is the internet is broken. The internet is going to go away as we know it. It's going to be upgraded. So when the internet was first being designed, the cryptography or the security needed to make the internet secure was known, but the computer processing or processors at the time were not capable of implementing the known cryptography. And so as the internet was first being architected, it was insecure, not by a lack of knowledge, but due to a lack of technology, hardware at the time. And by the time that the hardware had caught up with the known cryptography, too much had been developed. And so the early builders of the internet said, oh, we're too far along, too many things have been built. We're just going to have to go without security. And so the internet was built on sand. It wasn't built using a solid foundation. And the blockchain does a bunch of things, but most importantly, it is a security layer. And so the internet is going to be upgraded using the security or the cryptography that enables the blockchain. And everything you know, every website, every business that's built on the internet is going to be upgraded or go away. And so when you start to understand from a macro perspective how big the change that is coming is, you recognize that this is kind of the only place you should be investing.
So Brock, hang on for 1 second. Your voice is breaking up. Is my voice also breaking up, folks? Audience? Are you hearing my voice broken up as well? No.
Let me try putting a second earbud in and...
Okay, so everybody else is hearing both voices well. Okay, let's continue then. So, Brock, given that is your kind of high-level hypothesis, where are the investment opportunities for venture investments that you are particularly excited about? What are the categories of blockchain investments?
Yeah, we're about 10 years in, which is, where the internet was in the mid to late 90s. Keep in mind the internet wasn't useful until you had a sufficient amount of infrastructure. You need the bridges, the roads, the tunnels. The internet wasn't useful to most people until you had an internet browser, until you had an email client, until you had a sufficient amount of content to consume and things of that nature. So the blockchain is now just entering that sort of phase or era where we have now infrastructure that can begin to scale. The first 10 years has really been all about infrastructure. Not that infrastructure is not an important category, but we're now entering the phase where consumer applications are becoming possible for the first time. And so there's two sort of, I'm going to separate the world into two buckets. You have one which I'll call the developed world, and in the developed world, we have a lot of things. We have a lot of stuff that makes our life pretty convenient, most of which we take for granted, but our lives kind of work. The developing world being the other bucket. So in the developing world, we have about 3 billion people on the planet that don't have access to any financial services whatsoever. We have another 2 to 3 billion people on the planet with limited access to financial services. So in the developing world, the most interesting opportunity right now is in the category of what I'd call financial inclusion. 2/3 of the population of the planet have limited access to financial services. And that's for a variety of reasons. I don't need to break it all down, but it's about Latin America, it's about Africa, it's about Southeast Asia, and it's really, you know, fintech, financial technology that is bringing about financial inclusion. You know, in Maslow's hierarchy of needs in this day and age, you know, what should be on that list is consistent access to the internet or data. You know, these are, call it basic human rights at this point, almost as important as clean drinking water, as well as basic financial tools. And so the entire developing world is going to leapfrog over what we use today, most people, that is, in the developed world, in the same way that Africa leapfrogged wired telecommunications and went straight to wireless. You know, the developing world is going to be getting access to financial tools that brings them to where we are today. In the developing world, in the developed world, it's less about financial inclusion because most of us do have access to the, call it, basic financial services that are needed to go about leading the lives we lead. And so in these areas, it's less about, call it, the consumer applications. It's more about the enterprise. It's the, call it the plumbing. You don't need to know all of the technologies, hardware and software that goes into making your cell phone work to benefit from it. And so most of what's going to happen in the developed world is using these technologies to bring about faster and better settlement, greater security, more efficiency, but it's going to be in the plumbing of the products. You don't need to understand that blockchain is what's making it possible. You just need to know that it's going to be better, faster, cheaper, or more secure. And so those are the macro sort of theses that I have. The developing world is going to be, you know, applications are going to be bringing about financial inclusion. And in the developed world, everything we use today is just going to be upgraded.
So let's double-click down on each of those categories and give us some examples of ventures that you or any of your funds across multiple funds have invested in that particularly stand out as great examples of leveraging blockchain to address one or the other of your two categories.
Yeah, so I started Blockchain Capital, which was the first venture fund in this sector back in 2013. I'll use one example because I think we've invested in over 70 blockchain companies. I was for some time, and maybe arguably still am, the most active venture investor in the ecosystem. It's not my area of focus. There's plenty of funds now doing this. I'm always going to where the market is going and what is needed most. I consider myself a servant. But Abra, like abracadabra, is a very interesting one. Bill Barheit, the founder, is a very experienced fintech entrepreneur, having built multiple companies. And Abra is taking advantage of, call it, regulatory arbitrage. PayPal is only in about 30 countries or so, and that's because of financial regulation. It's very difficult for businesses doing fintech to expand into nations. You can't just like a consumer application say we're global. You have to abide by the laws of the land in every nation in the world, and therefore to be financially regulated is very complicated. And therefore there are no global financial systems. They're confined and limited by the laws of the land. Abra is recognizing that with blockchain technology, you are not a custodian of your customers' funds. You are not holding their money in custody. You are just providing software for them to be in custody of their own assets. And therefore, the regulations are different because you are not holding your customers' funds, but only providing software for your users to hold their own funds. You are not restricted by the same regulations. And ABRA is essentially one of the first, or the first, truly global financial systems, financial tools for consumers. Think of it as the WhatsApp for money. And so ABRA is doing a great job in providing users around the world with the tools to be able to send money from place to place, from person to person. And so ABRA is very exciting.
Is that a consumer brand, or is it going to market through financial institutions in some format? What is its go-to-market strategy on that?
Oh, no, it's consumer, because you can't, financial institutions are confined to the countries in which they're regulated. This is the first application that I'm aware of that is actually bringing financial tools to consumers all over the world, and it's a consumer app, ABRA, ABRA, like abracadabra.
Look it up.
And that's fun. And by the way, that company's funded by American Express and many of the top, a lot of the top financial institutions in the world have funded it, understanding how limited their businesses are by these regulations.
Okay. Let's do another example. This is fascinating, actually.
So this is, I gave you a consumer sort of application. Let me try and think of a good example of, call it the developed world and tools for, call it big companies, or call it traditional institutions that are upgrading themselves with this technology. Well, from an infrastructure perspective, you have a bunch of them, and this is not the sexy sort of side of the industry, you know, the consumer application side of the industry, but you have groups that are developing, you know, open source software, much in the same way that you had Linux and Red Hat. You have a lot of companies that are producing protocols. Well, I'll use one, for example, called Block One. So Block One is a company that raised a small seed round. I wouldn't, maybe not that small, close, you know, near $10 million seed, and it's the only financing it will ever do. I'll take that back. It's actually taken in a couple of other financings, but from strategics. But that business raised a small amount of money to create an open source protocol known as EOS or EOS. And so that business brought in over $4 billion of profit in its first year from incorporation, making it the most profitable startup in the history of the world.
What does the protocol enable?
It's a new blockchain called EOS, scalable, you know, million transactions per second sort of thing. It's enabling what will be the upgrading of the entire internet today. And it's, I guess, the most profitable startup in the history of the world by more than 10 times its next closest contender. And so that was an example of, I mean, probably it would make investing in Facebook look like it was a mediocre investment. In the seed round, that is. And so that's an example of an interesting startup that we funded less than 2 years ago.
What about infrastructure? This actually is kind of infrastructure. What about infrastructure in the developing world?
Well, so the most interesting aspect of what's happening in the developing world from an infrastructure perspective, let's talk about building real bridges, real roads, real tunnels. You know, access to capital is, you know, one of the main challenges that, you know, governments have around the world. And they have to use their balance sheets to basically sign guarantees. And with those guarantees, there are people that will lend, you know, to the groups that are then building the infrastructure on behalf of these nations. And so there's Infratech is a new fund that's forming right now that is in the business of providing infrastructure by using new means of accessing capital. You know, capital formation is changing greatly right now, and that is due to blockchain enabling sort of peer-to-peer financing, both at the micro level as well as the macro level. And so it does that by bringing liquidity is probably the main thing, is that, you know, venture capital as an industry is somewhat broken. Venture capital, so I tokenized the first security and tokenized the first fund in the world and created the first security token. And the idea is that venture capital is only available to the financial elite. It's only available to pensions, endowments, high net worth family offices, and the likes. And the problem is when you invest in a venture fund, your money is tied up for 5 to 15 years. You can't access your capital, making it, even if everyone had access to it, even if it were democratized, most people wouldn't want their money locked up that long. And so as a result of that, valuations are always very low because you as the entrepreneur have to make the deal very, very good because no one wants their money locked up. It's a liquidity discount. Because the capital is not liquid, people want to pay 10 cents on the dollar, you know, versus what you would pay in a public market, for example. And so we tokenized the first fund about 2 years ago. We raised our Blockchain Capital's third fund in 16 minutes. We raised our third fund in 16 minutes from, I think, 800 LPs in 80 countries. And anyone that is a democratized limited partner in that vehicle can buy and sell and trade their limited partner interest. And I said, following that venture capital is dead. There will be no venture capital as we know it in 10 years.
I'm going to ask you a slightly different question. I'm thinking about from an infrastructure for developing countries, I'm thinking of the example of what India is doing with Aadhaar. I'm sure you're following what's going on there. How do you view that? What is your critique or observation about that effort?
Well, no, I mean, infrastructure in the developing world is critical. I mean, you've got needs for basic things like identity. And India is, you know, leading the way in this area. But it's back to financial inclusion. You know, you have to bank everyone.
Yeah, the goal is the same, financial inclusion and being able to distribute aid so that it actually gets to the people whom it's designed for and so on and so forth. It is the largest single accumulation of identities outside of Facebook, owned by a government, not by a private entity. However, it is also extremely vulnerable to cybersecurity breaches and so forth from what I'm hearing. So I don't know if you have any comment on that.
Well, it's built on the internet, so it's fundamentally flawed. It's insecure from the foundation up. I mean, that's the problem. The internet's broken, and the internet needs to be basically thrown away as it exists today. It needs to be upgraded to have a security protocol built into the underlying fabric. And so anything built on the internet is fundamentally broken. And as security and hacking, you know, continues its growth, you know, as the tools of the trade to break things and to hack things and to exploit vulnerabilities continue to improve, which they will, our infrastructure cannot. You know, our infrastructure is fundamentally broken. So we're just going to become more and more and more vulnerable. And
so is your primary investment thesis vis-a-vis infrastructure around security?
Well, it's one of the things. The other aspect, you know, I've probably overemphasized security. Let's talk about, you know, one of the other most interesting aspects of what blockchain does is transparency. Because you mentioned, you know, delivering aid and recipients receiving the aid that was intended for them. You know, one of the main problems in the world of aid is that most of the aid doesn't get to where it's supposed to be going.
That's right. It's a very big problem.
Call it a very leaky boat. There's a lot of leakage, you know, in the system. Some intentionally, designed into it, some of it unintentionally. Transparency and the ability to see where one thing begins and where one thing ends, and no matter how many hands it runs through, to see exactly what happens with that flow of capital or those resources, whatever they are, is a very interesting thing. When you shine light in the shadow, everything is seen. And when everything is seen, when everything is known, it makes everyone be good actors. And so that's one of the things that the blockchain also provides, is it shines light on transactions of all types.
So last example, you have talked about protocol and security in the context of the developed market, and one of your really hotshot investments. What about the application side of the developed market? What kind of new fintech applications are coming about that you've invested in that are interesting because of blockchain?
Well, I'll talk briefly about a company called Ripple, or Ripple Labs, which was, I think, our largest investment in our second fund. Also, that one investment was enough to make any fund successful, I suspect. But Ripple does a bunch of things, but I'll simplify it in, banking. When you send a wire, when banks send money from a bank to a bank, it runs on what's called T+3. So when banks send money to each other, they usually have what's called 3-day settlement. It takes 3 days for the money to move from one bank to another. You, the consumer, might receive it faster because your bank is essentially knowing the funds are coming, and they'll credit it to you in advance of you receiving it. But these are using systems known as ACH or SWIFT. And so Ripple has built a protocol for banks around the world to improve settlement down to 0 days, minutes versus days. And so it's a new interbank settlement system. I mean, ACH and SWIFT is going to go away. It's ancient, archaic, ancient, garbage. I mean, it's garbage. And now we have better systems in place. And so Ripple is partnering, I think, with hundreds of banks now to upgrade their infrastructure so that we have faster settlement. But that's for banks. That banks can now send money from one bank to another bank, instead of the way it works today is banks send money to one bank that goes to another bank that goes to a central clearing bank that goes down to another bank. It's this, I mean, if you actually saw the way the financial system works, you'd say, can you design it any worse? I mean, but at the time,
it adds a lot of velocity to the financial system, a lot of lubrication, Great.
Yeah, and so
that's very interesting.
That's an example of banks upgrading their systems with this technology, and every bank on the planet is using blockchain in some way now.
So I'm going to ask you a last question, which is, what is an open problem that you see out there that you would like an entrepreneur in our universe to go solve using blockchain?
Well, one of the main things that I'm concerned by, one of the main needs that exists, is this technology has the potential to positively impact so many lives, but a lot of it's still theoretical. I stopped playing what I call the game of compounding interest. Compounding interest being the game of self-interest. How do I do more for me? I'm changing the game, and I'm playing a different game, which I call compounding impact, which is how do I have as big and positive an impact on the world as I possibly can. And so a lot of the things that we talked about today, like the financial inclusion, but there's many other things, is how do we go from the theoretical impact of this technology to the actual impact? I'm looking for lighthouses. I'm looking for real-world examples where people's lives are being positively impacted in a material way. And so these are the things that, as I say, there's a Japanese term, and so this is the tipping the hat to Satoshi. Tipping the hat to Satoshi. a Japanese pseudonym, known as Ikigai, which if you take a look at a Venn diagram of 3 rings, a trinity of rings, where it's understanding what are you passionate about? What do you love? And for each of us to understand what are those things that we're very passionate about, play to your strengths. What are you good at? What are those things that you're naturally good at? What are the things like, as Malcolm Gladwell would say, what are your superpowers? What are the things that you've invested 10,000 hours into that uniquely defines you and makes you the wonderful human or the wonderful being that you are? And what does the world need? What does the world need right now? How can you make the world a better place? And so understanding what you love, what you're good at, and what the world needs, the intersection of those 3 rings is what's called your life purpose. And I'm looking to help people along that path to make a positive impact in the world. And so we need everything. The world is in need of a lot of help right now. People need a lot of help right now. I mean, as I said, 2/3 of the planet doesn't even have the tools to enable themselves to live a meaningful life. So let's bring the tools to everyone on the planet so everyone can live the best lives possible, and as a result of which, better the lives of everyone around them.
Very good. On that note, thank you, Brock, for being here today and sharing your perspectives on the blockchain universe. It's something that we'll continue to explore and look at more opportunities. We are seeing lots of companies developing in that area also within the program. So thank you for being here.
And last thing is Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico needs entrepreneurs, and it needs angel investors and mentors to, it's about the developing world right now. The meek will inherit the earth.
True. All right. Folks, entrepreneurs, we're going to switch to your pitches. We have 4 pitches today. I'm going to need to drop for a second and redial in because for me, the audio is coming broken. So I'm going to have to disconnect and dial in. So as soon as I do that, we will start the entrepreneur pitches. So give me 1 moment, okay? All right, I'm back. Let's start the entrepreneur pitches. Just a quick expectation setting here. Remember, this is a safe working session and we are on your side. So this is a place where you can bring your issues, your challenges, and we'll do our best to help you with some feedback, some guidance so that you can accelerate your process. That's the whole point of this forum. It is possible that you might disagree with what you hear here. That's fine. It is your venture. You will decide how you want to move forward, what you want to do going forward. Just listen, take the feedback, address the issues that you're hearing here, and try to figure out a path forward. One thing you have to keep in mind is that not all businesses can raise money. Not all businesses should raise money, and raising money does not guarantee success. That is a fact. This is not a negotiable fact. It's a fact. It's a fact written in stone. So with that, we're going to start with Paulius, how do you say it? Vegele from Lithuania.
Yes, hello.
Lithuania. Paulius, help me out with your name. How do you pronounce it?
Yes, so that's Paulius.
Paulius
Vegele.
Paulius Vegele. Great. So you're from Lithuania and you live in Denmark, in Copenhagen. Tell us what you're working on.
Yes, and I've been living there for 10 years now, and yes, so I'm the CEO and founder of rvlhub.com, which stands for rivalhub.com, and being on Switzerland on exchange, I saved up a lot of money before going there and working in McDonald's for many years, and being on exchange there and studying, I came up with this new idea, rvlhub.com, and this is basically an innovative platform to buy and sell everything online. So this is a new way to buy and sell everything online, where you save money by getting personalized deals directly from companies, and you get to choose the best one that they offer for you. So nowadays, in this slide, we wanted to show you that nowadays world in retail needs change, and buyers lost the bargaining power. And what is bargaining power? So back in the old days, if you would go to a market and you would like to buy, for example, a fish, one seller would scream one fish for $1, another seller 2 fish for $1, and the third one maybe 2 fish and a pinch of salt for $2. So there you would have choices, and all of them, those sellers would be competing for your money. And nowadays, the situation is the opposite. So if you look on the graph to the left, what I wanted to show on the horizontal axis, time spent searching for products. Most of the online retailers, you have to search long hours, compare products, and we don't want that nowadays. And then on the vertical axis is this bargaining or buyer power, which is nowadays is rather weak as well, since you go into the shops and you take the price the way it is, and you are getting happy for the discounts. You don't negotiate, you don't bargain the price. So in this way, we want to bring this strong buyer power back and fast searching.
So is this a platform, is this a bargaining platform? Is it a platform where buyers get to name the price? Are we talking about Priceline kind of stuff?
So this is a platform where you put in a request on anything you want to buy, and then companies come back with proposals competing for the best to win you as a customer. Yes.
Okay.
So we are acting as an intermediary, which connects buyer with companies, and we renegotiate the prices on behalf of the buyer. And this is like
so it's a Priceline kind of platform.
I wouldn't say this is a Priceline or price comparison website, because
no, Priceline is not a price comparison website. Priceline is exactly what you're talking about. So you better study Priceline.
Okay.
It works only in a certain segment. You may be doing this in a different segment, but Priceline operates the way you're talking about. You know, a buyer says this is what I want, and companies propose prices or propose bids. That's how Priceline works.
Yes, and this concept already existed for many years in the banking industry, where banks were competing to get the customers, and this is where we thought, why can't we not do it on retail products and on any kind of product experience? So, for example, here's an easy example. I wish for a TV. My budget is €1,000, and then we send this wish to companies. companies give you proposals for 900,000, 700 euros. All you have to do is just accept the best one or reject all and make a proposal request again.
Where are you? Is it started? Is it something that you're at a concept stage? Where are you?
We have launched a month and a half ago, and right now we have over 250 users globally, and we start gaining supporters as well, because we don't perceive ourselves as only a business, but also as a movement. And idea comes also from Occupy Wall Street, where it was bringing back the power to the people, and we want to bring the bargaining power to the people as well. So
tell me about these 250 people who are already using the site. So these are 250 consumers, yes?
So these are, yes, now we have 240 buyers and 30 companies signed up to the platform currently.
Okay.
And
tell me a bit about, hold on. I'm going to need to ask you questions to understand this now. So the 30 companies that want to sell on your platform, what products do they sell? What is their portfolio of products that you have access to in this mode?
So this is computers, car parts, we have travel, and that's it until now. But we are also contacting other companies. We are operating within all product categories. And
so first and foremost, my first feedback to you is do not compete in all categories. Focus on categories and get multiple vendors in each category so that you can have them bid against each other. If they're not bidding against each other, you will not be able to get the price down. Your question about how can you take it to the next level, that is my first feedback to you, is you need a lot of vendors in each category that you want to sell in. So if you're talking car parts, you have to get a lot of car parts vendors. If you're talking TV, you need a lot of TV vendors. If you need computers, you want a lot of computer vendors. That's point number one. Point number two is geography. What is your geographical footprint?
So we are a global platform as well, and since we are launching it globally, and this is something that's changing people's behaviors, we don't want to be associated as well with one product category or one specific niche. That's because we want to change consumer behavior, and this is a long process that comes from. That's
not how consumer behavior changes. If you look at the history of Amazon, Amazon launched in books. It changed consumer behavior in books and then gradually expanded to a very large set of categories. eBay did the same thing. eBay started with collectibles and changed consumer behavior in collectibles and then started introducing new categories. And Priceline operates mostly in travel. So most of the time when you have to do consumer behavior change, you have to do it in a particular category, start making that change happen. And you have to bring all the players that are going to, you have to have inventory, you have to have players who are willing to play in a certain category. Just by having one player in here and one player there, you're not going to be able to change consumer behavior because you will not be able to deliver value. The value you're offering is that people can negotiate. You know, you can get multiple bids and drive the price down to fit your budget. And to do that, you need multiple players.
Yes, and it's not only about price, it's about giving the best proposal so people can compete, companies can compete on social corporate responsibility or something else. I do agree on some points, but not everything, but thank you.
You're welcome. All right, Eileen Merriman from Australia, you're next. Thank you for staying up, Eileen. I know it's very late for you.
No, that's all right. I've got a cup of coffee, so it's all good. Okay, so yes, I'm Eileen, and I've just developed and published the MyHomeBuy app. And go to the next slide. That's me. So I don't have a team, a mass team, it's just me. So as a real estate agent, just dedicated to ensuring that buyers who are on that journey are organised and keep on track, because it is the biggest purchase of their life. So the next slide. All right, so this is the problem that I see day in, day out. We've got deal with thousands of first-home buyers over the past few years. There's lots of information scattered throughout the website for them to know what to do, when to do it. They come into us, they feel quite overwhelmed. They don't want to disclose a lot of information, and they feel a bit stressed out. So the reality sets in for the buyer. They're approaching the bank, they talk with brokers, you know, they talk with the real estate agents, where do they want to buy, why do they need a lawyer? So there's lots of things that they need to consider, and they try to manage all of this without missing anything to ensure that the contract goes smoothly and that it doesn't fall over. And then the next, that little bit on the right is just when they download the MyHomeBuy app, it pretty much ensures that they don't miss anything, that they stay in control. So that's just a little bit about the problem journey there. If we go to the next slide. So why I made this app? Well, in my role as a real estate agent over the years, I've encountered a lot of people who just don't know what the process is. They're confused, ill-informed, and they have high chances of falling over it most of the time. So just made this app to simplify the process, and more importantly, like to empower the buyers. There's a lot of information out there for sellers because they've got an asset. Everyone loves to know the seller, but for the buyer, they feel quite isolated. So really to empower them and keep them on track. So the next slide.
What is the situation right now? Is this app already in the market? Are people using it? What's the status?
Yeah, sure. So look, we did a soft launch a few months ago, and it was a paid app, but we weren't getting a lot of traction. And unfortunately, I made the mistake of not having a lot of marketing money from the development. So we haven't been able to put a lot of money into marketing. However, we do have just under 100 users throughout Australia, US, Hong Kong, China, and Europe.
And so is this a generic content app? Like, you know, a buyer a first-time home buyer is connecting into this app and getting a bunch of content through which to educate themselves? Is that what this app does?
Yeah, exactly. So what I've done is I've broken the process into 7 key milestones from budget through to moving in. So there's 4 main features of the app. So the milestones would be the main feature. And within each milestone, there's tips, there's tasks, and there's checklists. Now, depending on what they're doing, they can customize the app so that they can keep on track of whatever it is, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a block of land, you know, they can just customize it. So, yeah,
So these 100 users are paid users or free users?
No, so we had, 24 paid, and then I just needed traction, I needed feedback, I just needed it out there. So I got advice to just make it free, which we did. So we made it free.
So what is the point? You know, if you make it free, what is the point? Why are you doing this business? What is the business model for the app?
Yeah, so if we go down to, let me see. So the business model just lost down a bit further. But the business model, I just needed feedback and I needed traction. So I needed information from buyers, from users to say, this is really helpful, or if you had this in it, this would be great. So to get that feedback, that's why I had it free, but a lot of users don't really give a lot of feedback. I've had some feedback, which is great. So I guess when I go down to the business model, there's a few things that I can do. So one, I can revert it back to a paid model. There's a couple of design enhancers that probably I'd like to do as a result of seeing it now, like, and maybe connecting services, connecting the buyer to services that they need throughout that journey. So thinking of that. The other business model is charging brokers a monthly fee so that they can access the app along with the buyer, so they can talk to each other, or they know where they're up to, and kind of protect their commissions as well.
Eileen, just a second. I'd like to invite Brock for his feedback. Do you have comments for Eileen?
Sorry, can you hear me? I've been back.
Yes, we can hear you.
You know, I guess, what's the question for me, or just feedback?
Well, I was asking if you have feedback for Eileen. She's, you know, she has this first-time home buyer app, and she started off with a paid app. Now she's made it free, and she's talking about going back to a paid model. But to me, the business model side doesn't look compelling. So I was just asking if you wanted to weigh in with your ideas for her.
If we just go to slide 13, sorry.
You want to move forward with the slides? You have some others here, okay?
Yeah, that one.
Go on. You want to present the slides, Eileen?
Yeah, sure. So with the business model, there was a few areas that we were looking at, whether or not to license it out to brokerage companies so they can tap into the user journey as well. Land developers, so here in Australia, there's, you know, a lot of land developers, and on the app I talk about how to buy land and obviously how to build. So there's tips and there's parts of checklists on there. So, because right now, when you buy a block of land and go on that journey, it's quite archaic how you get updated on the progress. So within the app, we could upgrade it to have notifications sent. And then obviously lead generation is another. So as a user, or as a buyer is going through, you know, budget through to moving in successfully to their new home, the services that they require, we could essentially, maybe through Google Maps, show them the services that are in their area, where they're buying, and, you know, whether it's a removalist company, you know, they can just send an inquiry through the app that way. So I guess that's why I'm here tonight, because I'm just not sure in what way to move forward. I don't want to be everything to everyone.
Here's one thing that you have to keep in mind. Each time you want somebody to pay you, you have to provide enough value for that particular customer. So your first paid model is the end user, the consumer, who is the first-time home buyer. So is your app providing enough value for the first-time home buyer for them to be willing to pay you? If that is the case, then go build out that portion of the functionality and start charging people and create that part of the business. And you have, I suppose you will then have a lot of home buyers in the system, but it's also paid, so you have cash coming in. Then you start exploring how to plug the brokers into the process. And what would the brokers need from a functionality point of view for the brokers to be paying you? What kind of functionality do they need that would, you know, bring them on to pay for the product. So I would say do those, do the first step and the second step. Land developers one is a much bigger stretch. So I think I have a question mark around land developers, but the first two I think are doable, and why don't you do the first two and get to a certain amount of revenue? I mean, I would even try to get to $1 million in revenue by doing the first only or the first two only, and then we can discuss what to do next.
Yeah, so if we head to slide number 8, it will give you an idea of the features and some of the screenshots that the app provides. Obviously, it's still version 1.
So I don't really want to go through features right now. I don't have time to go through features. I have to work with a couple of more people here.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
But your question about how do you find a partner to help you grow the app, I don't think this is something you grow with a partner. You need to find a go-to-market strategy for, apps have go-to-market strategies. There are apps that go to market, and there are lots of proven strategies of how apps go to market. So you're going to need to understand those, and if you just hang on, I will explain later on in the show how to use the 1Mby1M program, and you can see if that's what you want to do. But my point is, don't expect that some partner will just take this off your hand and generate revenues for you and build a customer base. You're going to have to learn how to do this yourself. And I understand that this is not your background, but you cannot assume that you can outsource this to somebody who's going to do it for you. That's not a reasonable assumption.
No, of course not. No, thank you.
Okay. So Maureen is telling me Andrew has not called in from Uganda, and to skip to Roopali. Okay, here we go. Roopali Gopal. You're called in, Roopali? I see Roopali on the panel. Andrew is also calling in shortly. Roopali hasn't called in either. So, folks, you need to call in so that you can converse. That's like technology 101 for these roundtables, is a phone call. It can't be that complicated. So, folks, those of you who are in the room, while Andrew and Roopali are doing their pitches, feel free to start introducing yourselves in the public chat. Be sure to set your chat to send to all participants, and introduce yourselves. Tell us who you are, where you're joining from, what is your project, what kind of issues are you stuck with, or what kind of issues are you trying to find solutions to. And we will get to Q&A shortly. Is that Roopali? Yes, we can hear you. Go on. Yep.
Oh, perfect. Basically, we run a website called as Doctor at Doctor for the UK doctors right now. And as of now, it was a free service website, like, for networking. Because in UK, the doctors have to move from deanery to deanery, hospital to hospital, and, there was no platform for them to connect with each other directly, like message-based or, basically this wasn't an email service platform. We are planning to get into virtual medical education, where the members can access it, like, it's a curriculum-based, virtual medical education. So they will have webinars happening every week, medical teaching from the NHS doctors, and, they get the CPD points when they attend the webinars weekly based for, it's like, for them to come more often to the website, you know, to create attraction. This website, it was free as of now. We are trying to, you know, pitch for the virtual medical education, which initially it will be catered to the UK market, and we want to take it to the other markets as well. Right, you know, there are around 300,000 doctors registered under GMC, and around 600,000 nurses registered under GMC. So, yeah, meaning we saw there wasn't any platform which was curriculum based. The other websites, they, you know, they provide either they are journal based or you know, like exam based websites, or, you know, YouTube, like YouTube videos where the doctors could go and sort of have a look. So we thought of charging initially between £1 to £2, and you know, per user, per doctor, because there are different subspecialties with that we are going to sort of you know, have the doctors coming and speaking about the topic, and they're going to sort of, you know, have a proper curriculum, you know, like sorted out before they.
So the big question that comes to my mind is, who develops the curriculum, and how do you develop that curriculum? Because medical school curriculum is extensive, right? People take years to complete a medical school curriculum. So are we talking about the core curriculum? Are we talking about supplemental curriculum? And who is designing the curriculum? What does it take to get a curriculum in place that is going to, you know, incentivize people to pay for it? What is the strategy?
We have NHS consultants who are more than willing to sort of, you know, come to the platform and help us out, you know, by teaching. Obviously, we're going to pay. It's going to be like a paid service, and there is like a pattern which goes into the curriculum to be designed. And my partner, he's a doctor as well. So, you know, he has contacts, and he sort of has spoken to the GMC about how we are going to go through creating the curriculum. Yeah.
So what is your question?
Yeah, basically, you know, we would like to know how would we go about pitching, because we are trying to pitch the idea. And do you feel the business model sort of lacks anything?
Right now, your business model is a very nebulous idea. It needs to be worked out at enormous amount of detail. And for you, I strongly recommend you follow the methodology that we use here in the program. You learn the methodology through our curriculum and apply the methodology to build your business, because it seems like there is a tremendous amount of methodology gap in your team. You have not done this before, and it's a very vague concept at this point that you're going to have to flesh out at every level.
All right.
So if you hang on, I will explain after. If Andrew is calling in, I would like to speak with Andrew, look at his business plan, and then I will explain how you guys can use the 1M platform to plug your gap.
Yeah.
So if you just hang on for a moment, I'll get there.
Yeah, perfect.
Now, Andrew, what is going on with your phone call? Are you called in? Andrew, you're going to need to mute your computer. You're dialing in through the phone and through the computer, and that's generating echo.
I'm in now. Can you hear me?
Yes, that's better. Let's go to your slides. All right, Andrew Okullu from Kampala, Uganda. Go ahead. What's going on? What are you working on?
My name is Andrew Okullu. I'm from Uganda, developing country in Africa. So currently, we are trying to work on a digital fuel voucher system. Because in Africa, predominantly, when we are purchasing fuel, we have some modes. There's the cash mode, which is very much preferred. Then there's the second one, whereby there are fuel vouchers. Let me say company A can give you a fuel voucher, which will go to the fuel station and redeem. And then 3, there's the use of the plastic fuel cards. So
you want to turn the process of loading fuel into your car to some sort of a cryptocurrency. Is that what you're saying?
We'll be using blockchain to generate a put coins, which will be the fuel tokens. So for the first phase, so with the second phase, when we have grown our market share and customer base, we will try and see whether we can now be able to trade and have the Sutako as a cryptocurrency that can be interchangeable.
Okay. And where are you right now? What's the status of the company?
Currently, we're in the development phase. We're about to have our MVP out, so we can now start doing a beta test with the fuel company in Uganda. Yeah.
So you are developing this as a piece of software that City Oil is going to use to launch their, to basically start offering cryptocurrency on their gas stations, on their fuel stations?
No.
No.
For the first phase, because usually when we are buying fuel in Africa, there are 3 modes. There's the cash mode, where you go to the pump, give him the peanut money, then he loads what amount of money you've loaded, you've given him, into your gas tank. Or there is the payment vouchers, which are redeemable at the stations. Or we also have a fuel card that people use at the stations to get fuel. So in our case, what we tend to do, and then secondly, there's the issue of the fuel stations. Most of them have their own fuel cards. That, let me say, if I'm going to let me say Shell, I don't use that card at Shell, not at the Total or any other fuel station company.
Right.
What we intend to do is to be like an intermediary, whereby one person has loaded the Super Plus tokens and has them, so be able to redeem that the tokens worth.
You want to go to the ones who do not have full card services, and you want to become their full card service partner by using a crypto model, blockchain-based crypto model.
Yeah, and also those data.
So hold on, I have one question here. Are you talking about this being one crypto across all different oil companies who don't have full card services, or are we talking about each of them that need a private label crypto for managing their full card services? Is it one crypto or multiple crypto?
Yeah, one who can service any
one card. Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And so how many oil companies are there that do not have their own point system right now, full card system?
There are very many. There are many. There are many. Yeah.
There are lots. So most of them do not have a full card system.
Yeah, most don't have.
Okay.
So that's what we intend to do. So we can be able to unite all the stations so that one can fuel from anywhere, as long as they are participating fuel stations companies. We can be able to fuel from anywhere. Yeah.
And what, so that's not the revenue model, that's the market that you're going after. How do you make money? How does your crypto make, what is the, how are you valuing the crypto?
One will be buying the fuel from the various fuel stations. So since we are buying in bulk, we'll be able to get a discount, and then we'll add a small margin like about
so it's an arbitrage.
10 shillings, yeah, per liter. So that's because now when the person is buying, they are buying at a lower rate, so we're also making some money off the margin.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brock, do you have any comment on this particular application?
Well, I'm always happy to see things happening in Africa. You know, Africa has so much potential to benefit from this. I don't, obviously I've never put fuel in a car in Africa, so I don't really have any understanding of the need there and what the current tools that are available are, but I'm happy to see entrepreneurial activity in our space happening there. You know, bring that
all right, so
the future to the people of Africa. I'm happy to hear this.
Great. Okay, so Andrew, it makes sense. I think what you're saying makes sense, and what I like particularly about your situation is that you've got City Oil Company already to pilot with you, who has 24 stations so that you can get going with it. I'd be very interested in learning what happens with this pilot and what do you learn from this pilot. But overall, the way you've presented your investment thesis seems very simple and it makes sense. So I think once you get out to the market and through your pilot, you're going to learn a lot, and good luck with it. Is there any question that you particularly want to discuss?
One, because this is my first pitch ever. I've never actually pitched out.
Yeah.
So my co-founders have had more experience than me. So I thought, let me take it a shot and see how to get the experience, the process, how to better myself and be able to push the project further. Yeah.
So if you hang on for just a couple of minutes, I will explain. The immediate next thing I'm going to do is explain to you how to use the 1Mby1M methodology to plug your own methodology knowledge gaps. So just give me 1 second. Before I get into that segment, I want to ask you guys for a favor. If you like what we are doing here, and we've been doing this for years and years and years, please refer serious entrepreneurs into the program. And the word serious is in all caps and bold, right? Why? Because it takes a lot of years, a lot of time, a lot of patience, a lot of rigor, a lot of grit to build a company. And we are not interested in people who have unrealistic expectations about what it takes to build a company, but we are very interested in people who understand that this is a very intense, rigorous journey, and who want to follow a rigorous methodology to build their companies, put one foot before the other. So let me point you to the resources. Everything is at 1Mby1M.com. There's a whole bunch of free stuff. The blog is terrific. There are lots of case studies, lots of interviews with thought leaders, lots of trend analysis available on the blog. That is all for free. The Entrepreneur Journeys book series is available on Amazon. These are case study based books. Each book has 12 to 16 case studies, and you'll find various topics dealt with, all the way from cloud computing to e-commerce to positioning to bootstrapping with a paycheck, bootstrapping using services, women entrepreneurs, etc., etc. And you can use that as your learning material. These roundtables happen every week. This is the 415th session. You can keep coming back to as many as you wish to. You can use the recordings available on our YouTube channel. Our full acceleration program is 1M by1M Premium, and that offers you extensive methodology guidance. we have an online curriculum that was first launched in 2010. And over the last 8 years, we have enhanced it every month. So there's a tremendous amount of material here. Over 800 successful entrepreneurs and hundreds of investors have participated in continuously adding to this curriculum. You get to learn from other people's experiences, perspectives. There is a core methodology that we teach, which is taught in 7 modules. And those are bootstrapping, positioning, market sizing, customer validation, customer acquisition, team building, and financing. And there you have lots of sub-modules and, again, case studies for each of those. That's something that all of you need to learn. So everybody who is an early stage entrepreneur, if you haven't chosen a path of how you're going to learn all these things, master all these, core elements, whether it's Roopali or Andrew, you guys are, starting out on your entrepreneurial journey, you have to somehow master these pieces. And your pitch, your strategy, everything will be derived from how you address these points. So you have to learn that. Whether you use 1Mby1M to learn that or otherwise, make sure that you have a strategy of learning these core methodology pieces. In the program, we also help you with business development. We have private versions of these roundtables where we do actual strategy work. So you can bring your projects there. You can learn methodology through the curriculum. You can bring your strategy to bring your projects to discuss strategy at the private roundtables. And we also help you with financing and media relations. We have relationships with a number of investors, hundreds of investors actually, and then we figure out who is the right investor for your particular stage, your type of business, etc., and we introduce you to them, and we help you with media relations. We do have a lot of clout in the media, and we do let you access that media clout through our platform. Now, go to the website and go to the self-assessment. There's a set of questions there that are available for free. I want you to go through those questions and calibrate your businesses around those questions. You have to answer these questions. This is how you develop strategy. And these are the questions investors are looking for answers to. But my point is that you are the first and the most important investor in your venture. So you should be asking yourself these questions and refining your strategy as you go along. So try to answer those questions. If you get stuck on any methodology element as you're trying to answer those questions, you can also access the curriculum, the 1M1M curriculum, through 1Mby1M Basic, which is our curriculum-only option. It's a very easy way to plug your methodology gap, your knowledge gap by online learning. Anyway, go to the website. There's tons of material, explanation of the program, what to expect from premium, what to expect from basic, FAQs, video FAQs, etc. Description of the curriculum. See if this program is the right one for you. If it is, join the program. If not, find another program that can teach you methodology, especially for all of you who are doing this for the first time and are, just kind of feeling your way around. I cannot overemphasize how much benefit there is to actually following a methodology that works, that is proven, etc. So either this one or some other methodology, try to zero in on a methodology that you can follow. As I said, our program is case study based. We have had over 800 successful entrepreneurs, including 50 unicorn companies, over 400 venture-funded companies, 350 plus bootstrap success stories. All these entrepreneurs have shared their journeys, how they've been successful, what has worked, what has not worked, what has failed, and you can learn from them. You don't need to make all the mistakes yourselves to learn. That wastes a lot of time. Our methodology is actually lean, capital efficient, bootstrap startups. If you raise money, you have to bootstrap first, raise money later, and partly because most of the venture industry is looking for validated businesses, so you have to somehow get yourself to validation by bootstrapping before you can raise money. There's a tiny segment of of the venture industry that will write checks without validation. And it's hard to get to. So that's why our goal is to help a very large number of entrepreneurs. And for you, for the vast majority of you, it vastly enhances your probability of success if you can bootstrap first and get to a certain level of validation, even a certain level of traction. Okay, free roundtables every week right now, 27th September, October 4th, 11th, 17th, and 25th. We do have in-person rendezvous in Menlo Park at Cafe Boroni. If you are in Silicon Valley or you're visiting Silicon Valley from anywhere in the world, be sure to check the rendezvous schedule. Right now we have September 26th, October 10th, October 24th, November 7th, November 20th, and December 19th. These are the rendezvous coming up this fall. So you can plan your, if you're traveling to Silicon Valley, you can work this into your plan as well. That's it. We are ready for Q&A. So you can ask questions of me. You can ask Brock is still on the call. You can ask questions of Brock. Feel free to dial in or use the public chat to ask your questions. I will start picking up the questions from public chat as well. Feel free to introduce yourself, tell us what you're working on, and so on and so forth. So I see one introduction here, I think. Arun Phillips from India, working on a blockchain-based platform called helptheworld.io to transparently track investments in the social impact space and to reward impact investors with reputation and rewards. Well, Arun, bring your project in one of the upcoming sessions and let's discuss what you're doing and how you're moving forward. Anybody else? Introductions, questions, comments? If you want to call in, please feel free. Let me also introduce you to Irina Patterson on the 1M1M team. If you have questions about the program, you can also contact Irina by phone or by email. Her email is irina@1mby1m.com, so that's the best starting point. Any other questions, comments, introductions? Lots of people in the room that we haven't heard from yet. We've only heard from 3 or 4 or 5 people maximum. Andrew wanted to know his weaknesses. Well, Andrew, I think one weakness that I was thinking about as I was listening to you is that as you start working with these oil companies, are they going to accept working with one cryptocurrency that you want to bring, what you want to centralize around, or would each of the oil companies want their own loyalty card and loyalty points in crypto? So that's a question that is as you're doing your pilots, as you're talking to the oil companies, you're going to have to figure out, because if they say that no, we don't want to do this one crypto that is, that people can use across oil companies, we want our own crypto that is specific to our oil company and is a loyalty program for our brand, then you're going to have to reinvent your business strategy to fit that model.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Again, please do not send me private messages. Roopali Gopal, you keep sending me private messages and I keep telling you not to do that. Eileen is asking Brock, how could I transform my app to a blockchain app, and is the time now?
I don't know how to answer that, but I would certainly, I advise everyone to invest in themselves, to empower themselves by becoming knowledgeable about what's happening in blockchain. I advise everybody to do this. If you were an early adopter of the internet in the early to mid 90s, it would have had a big positive impact on your life. this is a similar wave, a similar event, and so I would advise everybody to you know, to get involved. How that applies specifically to your businesses, there's no simple answer to that.
So, Eileen, I think if you take what Brock is telling you, there is quite a lot of activity using blockchain in the real estate technology space. So as a starting point, you could research what are the real estate tech applications of blockchain, what are people doing, and learn from that and see how that fits into your model. And then you can determine for yourself whether it's the right point for you or not, depending on what you're learning and how that translates into your situation. So upgrading your knowledge would be the right next step for you. Roopali Gopal is asking, you're interested to know, yeah, I lost it again. You're interested to know what is it you're missing and what needs to be done. Roopali, the first thing you're missing is methodology of how to build a business. Your curriculum strategy is very weak. It takes a lot of investment to build a curriculum, and your curriculum strategy doesn't have the necessary rigor to go out there and claim that, hey, we have a great curriculum that doctors or medical students can learn from. So I'm not convinced by your curriculum strategy at all. Arun Phillips is saying, thank you for great learning in the session. One problem we're facing is the hesitancy of NGOs to share their data transparently. How could we overcome that? To Brock, what would you recommend is the best blockchain to be used right now for reputation solutions that don't have extremely high fees? Brock, do you want to take your question? So on your question about the NGOs not wanting to share data transparently, you know, every startup has to go through a credibility building phase. So you have to go talk to some NGOs that are willing to share data transparently, and you have to understand what they get in return. What are they, you know, what is their incentive to share data, and you know, what is the point? Why would they want to share data? And if you can convince them that they have something to gain from this process, then you can convince them to come onto your platform. If you cannot convince them, if you can't give them anything that they want, then they're not going to share data. And I'm afraid Brock has dialed out at this point, so your question about the recommendation for a blockchain solution is going to have to go unanswered, because I do not know the answer to that question. So questions for Brock are no longer answerable because he's no longer on the call. You can ask me questions, I'd be happy to answer, but that's about it. Anybody else? Any other questions, comments, introductions? Yes, no? How much should you charge for your app? There's a lot of value in it. You have to do an analysis of the market. You have to talk to customers, how much are they willing to pay for it. You have to look at your competition, how much are they charging. Pricing is a complex process. So I can't tell you how much you can charge. I can teach you the process. So this is why I would like you to study methodology. In the methodology, in the 1M by 1M curriculum, there's training on pricing. You need to learn, you need to be taught how to do pricing, and then you need to go apply what you learn to your market and derive your pricing. You're welcome. Anybody else? Any other questions? All right, folks, we will adjourn then for today, and we have a number of sessions coming up. So we have September 27th is the next roundtable that you can come for, or October 4th, and September 26th, you could come to an in-person rendezvous, and or October 10th, or any of these dates on the screen. Roopali Gopal is asking, would you help in finding angel investors? In principle, yes, we help people find investors, but you have to be fundable for us to introduce you to investors. Your current situation is not fundable at all. You have to do a lot of work in a bootstrap mode before you can become fundable. You need to learn how to become fundable. Again, I would strongly recommend you study the curriculum and get your methodology ducks lined up. But yes, in principle, 1 million by 1 million is a program through which you can meet investors and you can get introduced to investors once you get your ducks lined up. How long is the curriculum? That's a good question, actually. We have, over 300 hours worth of curriculum. What we recommend is you budget about 50 hours to master the core curriculum at the minimum. And then you can do as much extra as you wish. But you have to do the core curriculum, and I would say it will take you about 50 hours minimum to get through the 7 modules of core curriculum to get your arms around the core methodology. And you can do it in a month, you can do it in 2 months, 3 months, that's really up to you. The more you can do the curriculum, the faster you're going to move. And if you're doing 1 million by 1 million premium, then you do the curriculum and the roundtables, project-based consulting, project-based coaching, mentoring, whatever you call it, in tandem with the curriculum, and that's the fastest path to moving forward. That's how we really are able to accelerate people's journeys. Anybody else? All right, then we're going to adjourn for today. Thank you for coming, and we will see you soon. Bye-bye, everybody. Make lots of progress. Meanwhile, and until next time, bye.